Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to another episode of The Tap with Mecca, where we dive into the deepest concerns of our minds and souls and our true selves. And today, I'm hosting my best friend, my friend Yannick. I mean, I don't have to say your name. Yeah, you're gonna say your name yourself. So, so I was like, "Yo, we are going to talk about something that is really profound and really close to our hearts because."
Yeah,
We'll share how we met, but then I just want Yannick to introduce himself and we're going to dive deep into the conversation for today. Yannick, welcome on my podcast.
thank you, man. Thank you. Um, Introduction. Let's go.
Yeah.
What do you need? What do you need as content in the
Just
introduction?
tell people about Yannick, tell people about Yannick, what Yannick does, how is Yannick, who
Yeah,
is Yannick, stuff like those.
cool. Quite a complex question at the beginning, but Yannick Kamanzi. That's what I go by. I'm professional choreographer and theater maker. I also say I identify as a dreamer. Like I'm a professional dreamer. um, and that's my work basically, to bridge the gap between what people see and accept already and what people are have not yet conceived and imagined. So I try to be the middle guy between the real world and the not yet seen world to make that happen on stage, off stage. Um, I'm Rwandan. I'm 26 officially.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
no, the the official code to code comes in because I'm like, what? But yeah, that's my age, and I live in Paris, France now, where I do my work. But I'm a global citizen because I be moving everywhere, trying to spread this. Meet people. Meet people is my passion. Meeting people is my passion. Exchanging stories. Meeting them where they are because that's where the stories are. I'm a disciple of Christ. I'm a Christian, and that also really defines who I am and why I do what I do. Because I used to be confused about that until recently, but now it makes more sense in my head when that comes in to the picture. And yeah, what other than what I do, who I am, and my names, I feel like people can tell what is Yannick Kamanzi by now.
Thank you very much, man. I feel like I always tell people that, music, people say, oh, music is a worldwide language. Like it's a language that can be understood
Hmm.
by everyone. But then I'm like, no, it's actually the dance that is actually the global
Yes,
language. Because you can see when
yes.
someone is doing like a good move, even if you don't understand the music, you'll be like, oh,
Hmm.
you can dance. And
True
I
that.
always, when I see your videos, I'm like, oh man, this guy can really dance. How do
Let's
you
go.
manage to do like you can dance traditional music, you can dance like modern, like how do you manage to do all those things, man?
Yeah, I mean, you put it out well. Dance is a language, and I personally think, and this is very uncommon, that words communication through words is the most boring way of communicating. Like no, honestly, but because people can tell much more with just their bodies, with how their face move, like changes during the conversation, with how their body moves during a conversation, and understanding the body, understanding the way it talks is a gift. And dancing through different rhythms as well, like makes you travel and meet people. I became Rwandan first through dance, before language, before my ID card. Like, to give you the context, I was born at the border of Rwanda and Congo. So my first languages was Swahili, French, and all that. I spoke in Rwanda only later on, and as a kid, everyone would say, "Yo, no Congo man, like this guy is Congolese and whatnot." And no Muzairwa actually, because by then Congolese was not the word they used.
Yeah.
And so it's only when I was able to dance in Hore, like which is the Rwandan traditional dance, and I was seen with other dancers dancing in Hore, that some of the people that never accepted me as Rwandans were like, "Oh, Mngana Watch, like this is one of ours." Um, So dance for me is that way of breaking walls. Some people need icebreakers, some people need shots, some people have different ways to like break the ice so that they integrate in the society. I have this thing where whatever city I get into where I know nobody, I'll Google salsa with the name of the city, and that's how I'll make friends. And that's, on the dance floor, that's how I'll connect with the first people. That's where I'll say my name for the first times. So dance has always been like my gate to open and enter these spaces. So as you said it, it's that language that everybody can speak and everybody can meet on that movement and exchange.
Thank you very much, Yannick. I think there is one thing that you really mentioned, and I really want us to be like, I want that thing to be like the opening of our conversation, because today
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about, identity. Because one of the things that me and you understand, like how we've met so many times, is through
Hmm.
like events that help young people to find their identity. Most especially, like we are born in a country that has seen genocide against Tutsi.
Yeah.
Where our parents were involved in one way or the other as victims or as
Hmm.
perpetrators. And we were born in a generation that really fights to find the kind of identity that we can all unite on. So
Yeah.
you said you were born at the border, and I just feel like maybe the one question that can really help people understand your identity or how you identify yourself is, how would you describe your personal identity?
So describing the identity, right, is a very wide subject. First, understanding what identity is gonna stand for. Is it the fact of being who you are as a person or a thing? Is it what people say you are? Is it what you define yourself as a thing? Because when it comes to identity, it is a mixture of the two words. It's a combination of what you are going to make, decisions that you are going to make about yourself, and also that meeting the decisions that other people are making for you. For example, I did not choose to be called Yannick Kamanzi. Yannick Kamanzi are names that are my identity card today, that I identify as, like, I respond to these names, but they were not my choice. So some people decided that this guy is gonna be called Yannick, and by deciding that he's gonna be called Yannick, they decided I was not gonna be called Mecca or Christian or Gilbert or what other names. So that is one key thing. Like, there's a bunch of decisions that people will make for us that is gonna be a big part of our identity. But then there is that other part of it where we take it in our hands, we take it in our own perspective, and we're like, okay, this is what we are, this is what we choose to be. So my personal identity is going to be a mixture of those two, but on very different layers. As I told you, I was born at the border. So do I have to choose between Rwanda and Congo? Do I need to belong to one and not the other? To the most part of my childhood, I was asking myself that question. But as I grow up, I know I do not have to choose. I am both. I am as Rwandan as I am Congolese. Now, people in Rwanda might consider me Congolese, or people in Congo might consider me Rwandese, and that is their problem. I consider myself both. And then when it comes to Rwanda, the complexity of the matter also kicking in with the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. Okay, who do I call myself? I was like, we inherit a history that has cut people into groups, into categories, and some are Tutsis, some are Hutus, some are Twas. In fact, there are some that do not even belong to these three, because they're like, okay, you guys were outside, we don't even know where to put you guys, and that too, growing up, was a question. Okay, where do I belong in these groups of three? Um, and beyond that, post genocide, which is the generation that we grew up in, post genocide, there is what you mentioned. There's the complexity of, okay, if you're a child of a survivor, do you inherit the title survivor? If you're the child of a perpetrator, do you inherit the title perpetrator? If you're born out of rape, what does that even make you? If your parents were not directly involved in a way or another, where do you fall in this history? So there's like different layers of choices, of information, of groups, where one has to like put themselves, and we are part of these, the few people that can actually be like, okay, this part of history, these titles that we've known and that people have studied for more than 35 years in schools, we are taking these titles, we are taking them off of the picture. They do not exist in our time and era. They're not part of what you can choose from. Now decide whatever you want to be outside these. And for me, my whole work as an artist, but also as a human, as a citizen of my country, was to identify, okay, where do my generation belong? Where do I belong in this story? And today I can tell you that okay, I'm Rwandan. That is facts. I am Rwandan. Number two is gonna be that I am neither a survivor nor a perpetrator. I am I am a victim of this history. This
I
history
like
affected me. You see, so
I
I'm
like
victim of the history, and that is what I am. You see what I mean? Uh,
Mhm.
Now we're gonna meet to this pedestal as victims with many different backgrounds. But if we can all agree that we suffered from the history that we did not actively participate in, then that gives us a common identity on which we can build on. You see what I mean?
With
So
you 100%.
that for now is gonna be what I answer when it comes to what is my personal identity.
You know, like there is a one time that one of my friends said something that it's very easy for our parents to call each other like, oh, like it's very easy for my mom to say, oh, I'm a victim. I mean, I'm a survivor because she was there during the genocide
You know?
and she actually survived. You know, and it's very easy for my uncles who committed genocide to say, oh, I'm a perpetrator because I was actually punished for it.
Hmm.
Justice was served. You know, I served
Yeah.
time. But then for people like us who were born after the genocide, I always say it's very hard for us to say you're a survivor, you're a perpetrator because you were
Hmm.
not there by that time, you know? So the
Yeah.
best way to say is we're both victims of our history. And I
Of the
like the
history.
way
Yeah.
you put it. Yeah, I cannot. Do you ever feel like there is like now going to the influences of identity? Do you ever feel like there is a time that the society pressures you to be something that you don't want to be?
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to identity, again, as I told you, it's gonna be based on choices. That's one, but the second part of it is gonna be based on information. So
Mhm.
identity is gonna be the subject of identity is gonna be a war of information. So people are gonna give you options, right? Everybody, um,
Yeah.
and you're gonna get options that are feasible and options that are surreal and are like imaginative, and I don't blame imagination. I live in that for a very long time, but we live in an era where you can be anything, you know, and
Someone
that
said
gives room.
we live in a society where being stupid is legal.
You know, it is even praised. uh so what I'm saying is that it's information, and this is where this fight needs to be taken at. What type
Mhm.
of information do we allow ourselves to consume, right? Because I was having a conversation recently on a panel, um, for the festival Ubumuntu, and we were talking about, okay, we need to base our identity on our history and on our culture and what we inherit. But in some cases, and which is most of these cases, history has been played with, tampered with so many times. Like, look alone in our history, the Rwandan history. You and I at school learned our history in a very ab- abrupt way. The history of the world. Now, when it comes to the history of Rwanda, pre-colonial Rwanda is like one chapter. Then the second chapter is independence, right? The fight for independence, the journey to independence. Then there's gonna be like a couple of points that explains to us why independence was not really achieved, and they and with that they give you like the causes of the genocide, and then the genocide, and then the consequences of the genocide, and then paradise. The rest is Rwanda rebuilding and flourishing and whatnot. Couple of years back, when you went to a history class, and why do we say our history is good and it's reliable? Is because we have books and written documents that support that this material that I'm talking about. A couple of years back, what my parents used to study as history was completely different from that. But guess what? It had books and material to support that. So we the fact that everyone, and this is very disturbing because we come from a place, and in our culture we come from a place where history had a very big space in defining the present and perhaps imagining the future. And the Rwandese had stored every knowledge of theirs, every sense of what they wanted to keep as a heritage in their language, right? Kinyarwanda is the way we stored our history, our culture, who we were. And we took it to a very serious state, that we had a group of people that were in charge of learning this history through poems, through text, through narrations, and were in charge and responsible of transmitting this history to the next generation. Now, they were that serious that in case you realize that you forgot something, you committed suicide. That's the background that we have. Like, we valued so much what we were passing on, that in case we thought we could be the risk as to why this is tampered with, we removed ourselves from it, so that the integrity of the history, the integrity of the information that is going to be passed, remains. Now we live in a world where that type of value does not exist anymore.
Mhm.
Everyone takes pride in speaking what they think is best,
Mhm.
which gives us multiple sources of information and multiple wrong bases. Now, all of those are going to become influence to what a person is going to sit down and choose from who they are. Now, you take a 4-year old kid, you put them in class, you tell them, you can be a boy, a girl, a unicorn, a bear, a dog, an adult of 18 years old. Like, you can be whatever you want. Now, choose, and as soon as you've made your choice, stick to that choice and endure the consequences of it. 4 years, right? What choice do we expect these people to take? And then again, they get to the next level, you give them another type of another level of choices. Now, you can be this, you can choose to be this, you can choose to be this, you can choose to be that, you can choose to identify as that, you can choose to identify as this. And all of that is social media, newspapers, history class, and
Yeah.
you are left in a place where, and I made fun of it. I think, as you said, we live in an era where stupidity is like praised. But again, we are the only kind of animal or thing or whatever that struggles with identity. You will
True.
never
True.
see a dog trying to be any other thing but a dog.
I love that.
Like, you never see an iPhone, thinking to itself, I'm a Samsung or a
Oh, I might be a
Motorola.
Samsung tomorrow.
Tomorrow, maybe, if I decide I can be, and it's funny and we're laughing about it, but it's something that when people are gonna listen to it, they're gonna feel mad about it. They're gonna be like, okay, what are these people insinuating and whatnot? But this is
Mhm.
the thing, this is the risk that we are taking by giving ourselves this much work. Information that we accept, that we keep spreading, the choices that we keep making available, puts us in a situation where the simple things in life are no longer simple.
But
The
now,
identity is going to be unfound. And guess what?
mhm,
The moment where people do not know what they are, what is the purpose of them staying alive?
yeah.
you know.
Now this brings me to a question though. Like when we talk about like identity challenges that also come not only from like how we learn about like our identity, but from also like what the pressure that society puts on us in terms of like defining who we are as people. But my other question would be though, like what do you do in situations where your personal identity may conflict with society norms, like or expectations of the society? Like how does someone do it? Because like we've seen in this generation of ours, like people are trying to define their own identities not on how they want it but because of how they think the society is going to perceive them. Like, oh, I want to be this because my people would think of me like this. But you realize that's not who you actually want to be. You're being that kind of a person because your society wants you to be like that. So my question is, how do you navigate like a situation where like your identity is against, like, is in conflict with like society norms?
So there's two ways to go about it. Uh, to me, again, uh, way number one is to understand and somewhat accept that from history, society has this tendency of constantly being wrong, and trying to like push itself into thinking we're doing the right thing, but 5 years later point fingers at each other like, where were you, why didn't you speak up? Like, the genocide is a proof of it. um, Multiple injustices all over the world are a proof of it, and slavery is a proof of it, colonization is a proof of it. All of these are moments where the society kind of was like, no, we think we know what we're doing and we're doing something great. And every time they did that, 5 years later, 20 years later, 35 years later, someone was being blamed. And somehow we managed to put it on that one person, and everybody else is like, no, we were just following that one person. No, every
You always
time,
have a scapegoat.
you know what I'm saying? Every time tujende muchigari, every time you don't sit down and ask yourself the question, because society is not a thing.
Mhm.
Society is you, me, the dude that is going to be listening to this. It's each one of us. We all are individually taking part on building the thought and the mentality of this society. Now, most of us do not see that our contribution is needed until it's too late.
Mhm.
We think we can let the mass to make decisions without understanding that the mass never makes decision. There's always one or two people sitting down and doing something and then calling the mass into making it loud.
Mhm.
Now, we could be this one or two people, but we don't dare. We could put our word out. We don't dare because most of us are cowards. That's the reality. We want to be safe. We want to be sure that
Mhm.
if anything goes wrong, I am not the one paying the price. So because of that, most people are gonna do what most people are doing. Now, that's thing number one. Society is generally just wicked. Uh, Number two is, now that you understand that, what are you doing about it?
Mhm.
Because it comes down again to that. A lot of wise people say the biggest problem we have is not it's not that we have good and evil. It's because we have a big number of people that are neutral, and they're like,
That
so
is
long
so
as it
deep.
does,
Hmm.
so long as it does not affect me personally, I'm Gucci. You guys deal with you.
Uh-huh.
You see. Whereas the problem is, if everyone understood that neutrality is taking part actively in supporting what's going evil, then many more people would wake up. And as soon as people wake up, we can ask ourselves questions like, okay, who defines who we are? Where do things get identity from? And this is where whatever I'm gonna say next might be controversial, and I'm okay with it. But the phone does not
I
argue
love being
with the phone.
controversial.
The phone does not argue with the phone on who it is, on what it is, because what? Because some genius sits down, creates the phone, and gives it a purpose and a name and a tag and gives it a serial number, and then you buy it. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
The moment you'll see a very scientifically even proven, you can watch it. The rise of atheism goes directly and is directly linked to the rise of identity crisis. Why? The
Mhm.
more we deny that we have someone who set up things the way they're meant to be, the more everyone is going to try to be that someone.
Mhm.
And when everybody is that someone, then everybody's just going to create their own way of thinking. Now, I believe I was created. I believe I have a God, and that God decided to make me a man, a black man from Rwanda, victim of
Mhm.
his history and whatnot. I can complain about, okay, if he exists, why did I have all of these problems? You see
Mhm.
what I mean? But that's a story for another day. Because again, if I'm willing to go engage in this conversation, it means I am agreeing that he exists and is meant to be good. Then I'm asking myself, why wasn't he good in that specific moment?
Mhm.
You see what I mean?
Mhm.
But the simple fact that I agree that he exists puts
Mhm.
me in a space where, okay, I have value. This value is different from the value of the dog because he created me different from the dog, and he knew what he was doing when he made man. He knew what he was doing when he made dog. So
Mhm.
I'm not meant to be
Mhm.
a dog. Now let a dog be a dog. Let me be me. Now I'm a man. I'm not a woman. Let me, a man, stay a man. A woman, be a woman, and let's see how that works. And now, when we find our identity in the one who can give identity, it's not just identity that we find value, we find purpose, we find a place in history, in the space that we live in. And you'll find
Mhm.
that there's no such thing as two makers that have ever existed, neither
Mhm.
will there be the two makers that will ever exist, scientifically proven.
Mhm.
And you will see that the precision that was put in making the maker that you are means there's something that only you can do.
Mhm.
And guess what? The problem that we have also in this world is like, okay, you ask people, what's the point of life? They're like, why? Because we all fit in one matrix. The matrix needs one head, it needs many people that do the work.
Mhm.
Whereas we are all created to input something specific on this earth that we live in. So when we take the creator of the picture, you take the value of the picture, you take the purpose of the picture, and also you take your personal contribution of the picture. Then we remain all same, all even numbers, and everyone can decide what they want to do, and nothing actually makes sense, because what makes you a man and not a dog? What makes you think that you are superior to a dog when you have a dog as a pet? Does not that make you like the way a colonizer or a people would hold slave? Like, there's so many other questions that we can ask ourselves when you remove that single element of there's a creator that made you specifically you, and that made somebody else specifically that somebody. So how does a person now resist or walk against a society that is not thinking the same way as them? Is by first understanding that society is never meant to be thinking like you.
Mhm.
Number two, when you find your creator, you find your value, you find your purpose, you find your journey, and you can contribute into being and into creating that society, the next society that then where you think you are going has a space, what you think the world could be has a space, and you can actively contribute to this earth. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
That's
And
that's how I see it, at least.
and like maybe if you can help me like to have really a good understanding on this. When we opened up, you said something about our generation being one of the most confused generations in terms of like our identity. Like we have
Yeah,
a huge identity crisis, you know.
yeah.
But then, for someone, let's say for someone who's like 18 years old that might be listening to this podcast, what would be your advice for them? What would you tell them? How does
First,
someone go on the journey of finding their own identity?
First, by knowing that it's not a copy paste situation.
I love that.
This is You're not gonna find your identity by watching somebody else's identity,
Hmm.
by trying to fit in somebody else's cut cut box.
Hmm.
You are unique. Let's start with that. You are unique. Now, this is not another you can be whatever you want to be type of situation. You see, there is ground, there is basis for you to construct. Try to build a house on a paper, and let's see how much of construction can happen on it. Why? Because a paper was not meant to sustain a house. There's no foundation.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
however smart we're gonna end up being, we are gonna have to build these houses on rocks, on foundation. So there's gonna have you if you want to build your identity, there's a foundation to it. Now, that foundation, for me,
Hmm.
everybody else will tell you what they want. For me, is God, is the Bible. Go look into who God said you are. That's the foundation. But now, when you figure out the foundation, there is also your unique part to play. And if you're 18 or less, or even more, I don't care your age, but you are in the space where you can find your true purpose. You can find your true space in this thing. And that involves you understanding that you do not belong in the mass, but you are as much of a thinker than the person thinking for the mass. You are as much a decision maker like the people making decisions for the mass.
Yeah.
Your input is as valid as the billionaire that is bringing everybody to think the same way as he's doing.
Hmm.
So don't be afraid to challenge what you're seeing. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Don't be afraid to challenge what social media is teaching you. Don't be afraid to challenge what the school system is teaching you, because the school system is corrupt. The school is bringing what the school
Very.
needs to bring for the system to function.
Mm.
What you think is right. And some of these things, actually, our parents are telling it to us direct. I would say, if you're a kid, bro, listen to your parents, because your parents are probably telling you the right thing, but the society is telling you the wrong thing. But again, I don't know. Parents these days, we are also confused. So just know that you have as much right as anybody else to challenge the status quo
Hmm.
and to propose your way of thinking and to propose a solution. Just do not sit down and wait for other people to do it for you. Don't wait for other people to define you. Don't wait for other people to tell you, we think you are this. Just find a way of finding you and defining, and then bring it out so that you can help other people not to be like you, but to start that journey where they can also find their space and define themselves.
Man, this is like I feel sad because we are almost coming to the end. But I want to ask you: have you ever had like a point in life where you felt like your identity was being challenged, and like some aspects of life in general, like you felt like, oh my god, my identity is under attack?
Yeah. I mean, my identity just been stable like what? A year ago? Um, yeah, from the border situation that we started with, my
Hmm.
Rwandese, Congolese, then Hutu, Tutsi,
Hmm.
then and there's also small things like I grew up and everybody's phone for a very long time. I was Yannick the dancer, and so my talent and what I could do on stage became my identity. And in times of like COVID, or in times where I would break my leg, I would be like, dang, what do I become? If I cannot be on stage anymore, what does Yannick the dancer be? Do I
Hmm.
like disappear? And that's been
Hmm.
my phobia for like the longest, like a fracture, like an injury, my biggest fear ever. Because for me, that was a threat to everything I am. Because I thought my value was into the dance, my value was into what I do on stage, and in case that disappears, then nobody cares. Like, nobody's ever gonna like find any value to me again. So
Hmm.
so that. and into also, okay, finding value into relationships, like friendships,
Hmm.
relationships with women, because all of that thing is so
Very.
fragile that the moment one thing shakes, you're like you feel like the whole world just collapsed.
Yeah.
So I've been in these spaces for a very long time, like majority of my life, as I was telling you. I would hold on to something, and then that something would shake, and I would be like, dang, this is not safe. Then I would try
Hmm.
to find something else, career. Then that too would shake. Then I would try to find, okay, I'm a black person. Okay, Black Lives Matter. I'm a black dude. Let, you know, that too, bro. We're laughing about it, but blackness can be an identity.
No,
Uh,
it isn't it. It
state,
isn't it. Now being abroad, being in France, I don't know
bro.
how
Let that
racism is there. Being in America, like I know it affects the way people see
so
you.
much, so much.
It's
Like,
like your identity, no matter how much you try to escape.
and in the industry of arts, bro, like casting for a young black male, Afro
I was the
descendant
only
with
black
curly
guy.
hair.
I was the only black guy in my class, and
Bro, leave that
sometimes I
alone.
would
I was
be,
the only African in the school.
sometimes I would be like I would get A's sometimes, and then I'll be like, "Oh, are these guys just doing this because I'm black?" You know, like are you just doing this because, because you start like they start pushing the blackness into you in a negative way to make you feel like, oh, black people are just actually you're not only a minority in terms of like numbers, but you're also minorities in like brain wise. You don't have much skills like we do, and you push that idea out of them like, yo man, yo, like we're almost coming to the end, but I just want to ask you, man, like, just to sum up maybe everything we've talked about, how can we use our identity to shape our relationships with other people? Do we pick people who view our identity the way we want? Do we just, try to connect with everyone and then, shape the way they see? How do you decide, how your relationships be shaped by your identity?
Have you watched The Matrix?
No, I haven't.
You should watch that movie. It's brilliant. In the movie, Morpheus, who's like the guy who's
Spoiler
like
alert.
helping the mentor guy,
Uh-huh.
is trying to open the eyes of the main character Neo, and he has like two pills, and there's like a cool monologue that I did not like memorize, but a few things that stands out for me in that monologue is that, one, a lot of people don't want to wake up from this matrix. They'll even die instead of waking up. They want to stay where they are because it's comfortable. Um, and some others are like trapped in the matrix. They have no hope of something else. And then he gives them a choice. It's like, again, as we said, identity is sometimes just a matter of choice. But he gives them a choice. Like, there's a blue pill, there's a red pill. Now take this pill, and you will go back to reality, like to your reality. You go back to the regular. If they don't understand you, don't kill my vibe. Find a space where you are understood. Or pick the other. No, it's it's funny. The other one is like, pick the other pill, wake up, and then you can help participate in making other people waking up. So um I don't know if we're still together, but what I'd
Real.
say is, to sum this all up, we live in a mess. Like, we live in a actual mess. And there's two ways to go about it. Some people don't want to wake up, and it's okay. Some people will
Hmm.
never wake up from this mess. Some people will never take action because it's profitable for them.
Yeah.
It makes them get money. It makes them be validated in the society or whatnot, and it's cool, great. Now, some other people like you are creating spaces for brains to like um, collide and like see where the sparkle can come from.
We're tapping.
You tap into that. Now, you are one of these people that offer these pills, and now the people hearing us have the choice. Do they want to wake up No, do they want to stay asleep and life goes on? It's cool. It's easy. Or they want to wake up, participate in figuring out who they are, and as soon as they know who they are, help other people around them, whether they agree or not, to see that there's a way out.
Mhm.
You know, by unplugging them from the matrix, by showing them the reality, by making them see that they can snap out of it, they can be participants of this, they can take decisions, they can make decisions, they can stand as members of the society, not just a mass that we drag here. Oh, okay, now we drag them here, or we make them angry, they burn cars. We live in France, yo. France is revolution, you know
Macron.
everything we want, like, but it's mass doing this for the purpose of whoever is trying to lead. Now,
Yeah,
that's what I would say. Like, some people are comfortable like that, but for those who want to wake up, this is the time, yo. It's time to wake up for yourself, but for everybody else around you.
thank you, man. Thank you. I really appreciate. I think the key takeaways that, like, personally, the thing that I really liked from this conversation is like not having your identity tied to a certain thing, like work that you do. Maybe
Hmm.
someone saying, "Oh, I'm a good student," I'm like defining yourself as a good student, and by the
Hmm.
time you're not getting good grades, then your identity is shaken.
Everything just
Then,
collapsed.
yeah, like making a permanent decision on what your identity is going to be,
Mm.
basing on a temporary situation. Like,
Yeah,
even if you were permanent at some certain job, you're still gonna retire. Who do you
exactly.
become after retiring?
Right,
And the other thing that you really said is, like, deciding to wake up and help, like, other people wake up.
right.
And that for me is very, very, very important. And I appreciate you taking time, man. I appreciate you taking time to come and talk to me and talk to everyone who's gonna listen. You're my first host, my first guest, I mean. So I hope that the
Blessed.
feedback. Yeah, I know. You're blessing the show, man.
Blessed.
All right, Nick, man, I want to thank you very much and thank everyone. Just to wrap up, remember that the journey of self discovery is an ongoing process. Everything we
Let's
talked
go.
about today, you cannot just do it in one day. So you have to
True.
keep on exploring, keep on
Keep on
questioning,
keeping
and
on.
above all, keep on growing. All right, man.
True.
See you till next time. Bye.
See you next time, my guy.